What's going on, everyone? I'm just a typical, average American here today to react and learn about the UK's rail system. So today, I want to check out this video called Will Rail Nationalisation Work in the UK? Now, I'm not really sure what rail nationalization even means, to be honest. And maybe that's because here in America, we don't have a passenger rail system, really. Our public transport in general is pretty bad, and in a lot of cases, non existent. So today, I'm really interested in learning about the UK rail system and what exactly rail nationalization might mean for the UK. So, with that being said, let's take a look.
Now, anyone from the UK will know just how strange and expensive our rail transport is.
Oh,
Getting from one major city to another can often cost more than a plane ticket to another country.
really? Wow, I gotta say, this may be true. I don't know about the ticket prices for the passenger rail system in the UK, but putting all that aside, it's kind of nice that you guys even have this option of a rail system as a mode of travel to go across the country. That's really cool. Yeah, I didn't know it might be crazy expensive, and that's unfortunate and probably kind of annoying that a train is as expensive as an airplane. That doesn't really make sense at all, does it? I didn't know about that. But putting that aside, I'm just saying, it's cool that the UK has a rail system that you can even use. It really feels like it would open up the entire UK. Like, you feel like you can travel to places and explore, whereas here in America, you really feel confined, to your town or city, certainly your state, and the idea of traveling around the United States, even as an American, that's a big ordeal. You're gonna be in a car for 12 hours, maybe. If you're going across the country, you might buy a plane ticket just to go to another state. And having a rail system seems like it would make so much sense in the United States, but we don't have it. So I just want to start out by saying this is just something cool that the UK has that we don't even have, even if it is overpriced, I see.
And it's not as though the experience is value for money. Trains are often overcrowded, late, or downright cancelled.
Oh.
Now, the previous Conservative government knew this, and in an attempt to address it, the then Transport Secretary Grant Shapps came up with a plan alongside the independent chair of the Rail Review, Keith Williams. This plan, known uninventively as the Shapps-Williams Plan for Rail, was effectively to nationalise the railways under a new company called Great British Rail.
Nationalize the rail companies? So, does the rail system in the UK? I'm not sure how it's designed, where it goes, or who owns it, but it sounds like it's owned by several different companies. Is that true? The rail system, it's not owned by the UK government as a public service or something, or I'm not exactly sure. And apparently, a lot of people have some complaints about this rail system. I didn't know that. From my point of view, as an American, I'm still just sitting here that's cool that you even have that thing. That you even have that as an option. But I guess when you've had it for a while and you're used to it, then it's okay, you have some criticisms of it. So now we're getting into this. What does nationalizing the rail system in the UK, why is that a good thing? Why would that solve all these problems?
And this appears to be one of the very few points of agreement between the previous and current government, as
Okay.
Labour have committed themselves to continue with the process of establishing Great British Railways,
Okay.
with it even being mentioned in the recent King's speech.
Ah.
So in this video, we're going to have a look at how the passenger rail system currently operates in the UK, the issues with this,
Good.
and how Labour plans to change it in the future.
Okay, how it currently operates. This is perfect because I think they're going to actually explain how the how the passenger rail system works in the UK on like a basic level, which is great for me because I have no idea. Goodness knows, I have no idea. And then we're going to get into like the how we're solving some of the issues with it. Okay, very cool. This is really interesting for me.
To understand all of this, we need to go way back to 1996. Back
Okay.
then, the UK's passenger rail network was in the process of going from being nationalised under British Rail to the current rail franchising system.
Whoa, rail franchising system? What is all this? This like restaurants like in the United States. I hear about franchising in terms of like restaurants. Like you can franchise a McDonald's or like open up a McDonald's and all these independent different owners and stuff. Is that how the rail system works? This is back in the 1960s. It started as British Rail, then divided up into all these different rail franchises. And there's at least like 20 different rail companies here that own and operate the British rail system. Is that how it works? That seems like it'd be very difficult for there to be standardization across all the different rails and like quality control and stuff like that, I guess, if you have all these different owners.
Now, basically, the government offered contracts to private companies for groups of rail routes. Now, some of these routes were profitable, e.g., popular commuter routes. Others, less so, like
Right.
routes that connect smaller towns with few passengers to larger cities.
Right.
The deal was that the successful franchisees would have to operate all routes within their franchise, so as not to deprive smaller towns of their vital rail connections.
Okay, so the British government, like years and years ago, like opened this up to rail franchises throughout the UK to become part owners and operators of the system. Okay, that is not at all what I assumed it was like, but I think I get it.
Now, this system has been in operation ever since, with each franchise being auctioned off to the highest bidder.
Oh,
Now, the issue has been that many of these franchisees have gone bust, meaning that the government has had to operate the franchise themselves.
Oh.
This is known as them becoming the operator of last resort.
okay. Is it a bad thing if the government has to operate it? I mean, I laugh because here in America, whenever the government runs anything, it's typically a lot worse than if a private business did it, like a for-profit business did it, because the business has a reason to really try and put in a lot of effort, because if they fail, they go bankrupt and lose money. Whereas if the government fails, they just have infinite money and raise our taxes, and they have no incentive to do a great job, as sad as that sounds, right? So, okay, some of these rail systems are not profitable, and the British government has to run them. Okay.
In fact, last year, for the first time since the rail franchise system was introduced, the biggest rail operator in the UK was actually the government, after it became the operator of last resort for
Okay.
TransPennine Express.
Okay.
That meant that the government was running 6 different rail franchises across the UK. London North Eastern Railway, South Eastern, Northern, Transport for Wales, ScotRail,
Wow.
and now TransPennine Express.
Wow, so it's kind of going back to the way it started in a sense. Like the British government is owning and operating all these different rail lines, rail networks, whatever you want to call them. Is this necessarily a bad thing? Does the British government do a good job at this? Or I don't know.
To put it bluntly, it quickly became clear that the franchise system wasn't working.
Right.
Franchisees were not meeting the terms of their contracts, and even the government themselves described the system as flawed.
Okay.
Essentially, this was because companies were forced to overpromise in order to get the franchise. But in the end, they underdelivered, and the state was forced to step in.
This is so interesting because, again, here in America, we really don't have a passenger rail system. We have, like, trains and rails throughout the country. Those are all designed for moving freight, for moving resources and, packages, and for transporting business, operations and materials, not for transporting humans. That's where it's a bit different. So I really have no idea how a human rail system or network would even work. So this is kind of the first time I'm ever learning about it, and the British way of all these franchises. I didn't even know that's how it could even be set up.
And what made things even worse was the COVID pandemic, as the franchisees had to run the routes irrespective of passenger numbers, and with COVID regulations preventing people from being able to leave their homes,
Right.
the franchising model effectively became unsustainable. As such, the government stepped in and simply ended the contract system, with them giving all operators the chance to transfer all revenue and cost risk to the government.
So the government stepped in and basically said, we're ending this franchise system. Oh, this is what a funny moment in time for me to first learn about the UK rail system. When all this big reorganization is actually happening. I think I understand where we're at now, though.
With the franchisees being paid a small management fee in return for continuing to run the services.
Okay.
In essence, this was temporary nationalization, although even at
Right.
the time, it was understood that it could be the beginning of the end for the franchise system as a whole.
Okay.
With the Sharps-Williams review on the horizon, it was understood that the franchise system as we knew it was unlikely to continue.
And is that a bad thing? Is it a good thing? That's the part I don't really understand yet. Was it better run by the franchises? Is it better run by the national government? Or I don't know.
And as it turned out, this was exactly the case, with the Sharps-Williams review suggesting the biggest shake-up in how passenger rail operates in the UK since 1996.
Oh, wow.
Specifically, they recommended the creation of Great British Railways, an organisation that would be operated by the government.
Okay.
The organisation would own the infrastructure, though would not own the actual trains themselves. They'd receive the fare revenue and run and plan the timetables for passenger rail.
Okay, so the government is going to run most of the stuff, except the government doesn't own the trains themselves for whatever reason. Fine. But they are going to own and operate all the infrastructure, the timetables. They're going to even make money off of this. The only question is, does the UK government do a good job at running the UK rail system? Do they do a good job? That is the only question left.
It's important to note, too, that Great British Railways would also take on the responsibility for other elements of the railways. Back in the late 1990s, the responsibility for railway tracks was given to a new private company known as Railtrack. A few years later, this was moved to another company known as Network Rail, who are still responsible for the railway tracks in the UK to this day.
Oh my god, I didn't realize that the UK government outsourced so much of the rail system tasks and duties to these companies around the UK. So there's actually a lot of UK companies like Network Rail that kind of depend on these government contracts, because this is an entire business that maintains the rail system that would definitely go out of business if the British government just took over everything and it just became government run. So is that what's going to happen? Or is it going to become kind of a hybrid of the UK government and some of these British rail companies working together to sort of nationalize the rail system?
in order to simplify the chaotic network of responsibilities related to rail infrastructure in the UK, Great British Railways would take back control of all of the railway tracks.
Great British Railways, the government company, is going to take back everything. So all these rail upkeep maintenance businesses in the UK would probably go bankrupt, right?
This was the plan under the last Conservative government. But what does the current government want to do with it? Well, as we mentioned in the introduction, the Labour government are actually kind of in agreement with the Conservatives on this. They've committed to continuing the creation of Great British Railways, with it even being mentioned in the King's speech. In order to do this, they plan to wait until the contracts for the franchisees expire naturally, at which point they'll be taken under government control and will eventually all be made part of the nationalised Great British Railways.
Oh, okay. So they're waiting for the contracts to expire. Then the franchisees will go away forever, and it will become a nationalized, government-owned and run rail system. What do the people of the UK think about this? Are you nervous about this? Because again, here in America, it's widely understood by everyone, when the government steps in and tries to run companies, it's typically not good. It's typically done pretty poorly, especially compared to a private company. Private companies just do it better because they're a natural, for-profit business that has a lot of incentive to do a good job, to make money. As bad as that sounds, needing to survive and make money is a really good motivation for a company to do a good job. So when the government runs things in America, there's it seems to be a real lackluster job because there's no real stakes for them. The government isn't going to go bankrupt or go out of business if they do a bad job. So I'm curious what people in the UK what's your feelings towards government-run operations like this rail system? Is that going to be well done? Or is it like in America where you're I don't know if I want the government to do it?
Now, it's worth noting that the Labour government will still allow open access operators such as Hull Trains and Lumo to continue operating. These operators work independently from the franchises and run trains on only selected routes. Nor will Labour nationalise rail freight companies. So while Labour would pursue nationalisation, it would not be an absolute, complete nationalisation of all things trains.
Right.
Aside from this, though, there are some signs that Labour are planning on going further in some aspects. They've suggested that they'll try and cut waste and will claw back shareholder dividends, something that could save around £2.2 billion. Additionally, they'll create a new passenger standards authority, which will act as a watchdog for the new Great British Rail, as well as creating digital season tickets across the network and establishing a new automatic delay repay system.
So they're going to create a standards authority, someone whose job it is to make sure that there are standards that the system has to meet. So hopefully that is going to implement some quality control. You got some season tickets. Sounds good. Delay repay system. I'm not really sure what some of this stuff means. It's a little bit too specific for me to really understand.
These changes likely won't be implemented until later, but do at least show signs that Labour has plans to further change the system beyond just simply the creation of the new Great British Railway. Anyway, this is what the government has planned to do, but what have they actually done so far? Well, they've only been in office for around 2 months, so to be frank, not all that much.
Right.
They have introduced the new Passenger Railway Services Public Ownership Bill, which is a starting point for establishing Great British Railways, but it's not yet become law. Now, to be fair, Starmer has simply stated that his aim is to have Great British Rail operational by the end of the 5-year Parliament.
The 5-year Parliament. So this is like a priority, but it's not the number one priority in the UK, by the sound of it. It's something that's going to happen maybe in the next 5 years. Here in the United States, it's sadly, here in the United States, any talk, there's really no talk of implementing a passenger rail system or a big public transportation network that spans across the United States. I think so many people would love that here in America, but it's simply not a priority. It's not even talked about right now. I think we have so many other problems right now. This is simply not something anybody in America cares about right now, to be honest, even if it would be cool.
So he does still have a fair while to go yet. Now, you can keep diving deeper into this and other news stories over.
Oh, okay. I think that's it. Okay. That was really interesting. Again, as an American, I don't know anything about rail systems, passenger rail networks, franchises, or how rails really work. So, seeing the UK system of rail and passenger rail system was really eye-opening for me. Really cool. I mean, again, just to say, as a baseline, it's really cool that the UK has this rail network where you can travel all over the UK, like on a train, and even though it sounds like it might be a little overpriced, so cool that that's even a thing. I'm a bit jealous of that. And then it was just really interesting to learn about the franchise system, and now that's going away, and it's going to be government run, and hopefully that's going to work out. And I mean, is that going to lower the ticket prices? Is it going to solve some of those issues? Or I'm not sure. But this was really, really interesting to learn about, I gotta say. I enjoyed this. Anyway, if you enjoyed this as well, feel free to give this video a like or leave a comment with your thoughts on the UK rail system, rail nationalization, what that means, or anything like that. That'd be great to hear about. And if you're interested in more videos like this, me reacting to the UK and UK culture, feel free to subscribe for more. And until then, thanks for watching, and see you next time.